TV advertising in every home in the country. As you probably realise, the assets held by ITV from the regulator are no longer, in the great scheme of things, very valuable at all. They're worth about £40 million a year for the free broadcasting spectrum that they get, and by no coincidence at all, that's roughly the price to them over and above what they would do in, say, the national programme at 6 o'clock in the evening slot. It costs about £40 million to make all those separate regional TV programmes. They could walk away, no longer have to do regional programmes at all, but for the moment it's worth their while, and they seem to want to do that now, which is great. And if I just pause on regional TV for a moment, because it's not really a terribly fashionable thing at this stage in history, particularly at a local TV conference, but the last time I looked, the regional news on the BBC at 6:30 in the evening is the most watched news slot anywhere, more than 10 o'clock news, more than 6 o'clock news, or anything else. And the ITV programmes do pretty well too. The argument isn't about ratings, it's about the cost of making them. I only mention this to say, as we all know, the research shows that what people want is local, not regional. They want really localised information. But if the regional does that well, still, I do think that gives us all cause for encouragement. Anyway, getting back to the argument, if you want the regulator to have some leverage over the people who win local TV licences, it's about these regulatory assets and what we know about them. The local TV action plan refers to electronic programme guides, the position trying to get button 6 or maybe button 8, particularly on Freeview. How much is that worth? Well, nobody really knows, and we certainly don't know yet whether that will be secured and how quickly, but an EPG slot on the front page, as it were, may be worth £30 million, something like that, a year to a new operator. I think that number actually includes Sky, which, however malleable news corporation may be at the moment, I think that may be might be over-ambitious, and I think, as Jimmy was saying, satellite isn't the only way to deliver local TV anyway. But there is a certain value in tens of millions of pounds of a good slot on the Freeview EPG. And the BBC, over 3 years, is going to put in about £40 million, which I think what you need to watch there is that it is £40 million, and it's not all stuff in kind, because there is some fantastically valuable stuff that the BBC can do in kind. I would mention training, but I think we need to see the cash. And when the announcement comes out in the next couple of weeks, I think we need to see what those, if they've managed to do anything to enhance these assets, because, frankly, they're not huge, and they don't, in the present context, give you that much leverage as a regulator. But this all sounds a bit negative, because there's kind of this regulation, it's sort of doing stuff to people that they don't necessarily want to do. Like I said, I hope everybody going into local TV is doing it because they want to do it. But there's another model, and maybe a different word for it. I mean, if you were applying for some funds, you know, the Arts Council, you wanted to open a community arts centre or something of that kind, you would do it because you wanted to, and you would get the building or whatever it is and some money, and then you'd be held accountable for doing things that you said when you took the money on the building. But that's not regulation, that's more accountability. And I think, you know, particularly it applies to third sector organisations. So I would like to see, like I think a lot of people would, a mixture of the commercial and the third sector cultures emerging from local TV. Two last very quick final things. First of all this conversation tends to be about DTT, digital terrestrial television. There are so many other, and in the long term, or medium term, better ways of distributing local content. Let's not get too fixated on that. Finally, my kind of logic flow and the way we would be looking at the opportunities in local TV. It's all about news. We know, don't we, that news is the number one thing that people are interested in, unless anybody here would disagree. Or, with my view, that it's got to be high quality, or the highest that can be delivered, and comparable with what people currently see on BBC and ITV. But it's also got to be low cost, as I was talking about numbers before. So I think to deliver that on button 6 or button 8 around the country, you need a level of coordination, shared ideas, certainly shared overheads, avoiding everybody reinventing the wheel separately everywhere. And you need to make the best possible use of resources, and that is where, very much in my view, you guys come in. And that's why we've been talking, with Inclusive Digital to some of you, and I hope to many more to come. Thank you very much.
We've got time for 2 or 3 questions in 5 minutes or so. So anybody who wants to leave the panel, please speak now.
It's interesting that nobody's mentioned YouTube. Oh, Lizzie Jackson from Ravensbourne. It's interesting that nobody's mentioned YouTube. My job at the BBC was to start the BBC's social media, and we looked very much at Video Nation and what the local communities wanted in their message boards, etc., which gave us a good idea of the sort of things people wanted. The BBC is also doing the BBC Big Screens. There seems to be a big appetite out there for people to have their say, etc., and to appear or to contribute content. But we need to look at the new economic models, and that's things like the Google model, micropayments, and also I know from my own teaching that a lot of students are now looking at television on their PCs and Macs rather than through any other medium.
Hello, Jane Wyatt from the University of Westminster. One of our last year's graduates, Kay Obibi, some of you on the BJTC mailing list might recognise that name. She's starting an internet television channel called Be Inspired TV. And she aims to mop up all the new talent that wants to get on the television across the UK, well, across the world probably, because it's internet-based television. What advice do you have for Kay?
I don't think anyone would sensibly today think about launching a linear, terrestrial local TV channel and not have a strategy which involved on-demand services, putting content on YouTube, having an internet base. You want to be on every platform. You want to be on the iPads. You want to be on tablets. You want to be on mobile phones. You want to be on everything. Having said that, you also want people to be able to go home without thinking about it, without searching through thousands of internet sites, literally sit on their home TV, as they do every night, is in almost every household that exists, including actually in younger households, and see your channel easily, just come across it near the top of the programme guide. I do think that today, where we are, can't predict half a decade or more ahead, today where we are, I do think DTT, Freeview, is critical to the business model. But clearly you want to, that's not, it's not an either or. In terms of advice to a new internet business, one of the challenges for any business, doesn't matter what the business is how do you market it? And consequently, actually, this is, you know, I might come up with a more useful, constructive answer. But my advice today still would be that how do you think about working possibly within the local TV sector as it's developing, but within the broader media sector to try and do deals to try and promote your new service?
John Barsby from BJTC.
We need it for the recording.
Fine. John Barsby from the BJTC, and also I chair the National Union of Journalists Broadcasting Sector. I'd just like to ask the panel what they feel about the use of BBC licence fee payers' money to fund what is a commercial operation.
Well, I'll have a go. The way I would look at it is this: the licence fee is a means of raising money, hopefully for broadcasting purposes. The BBC would take the view that there should be an absolute wedding between the idea that the licence fee you pay goes to the BBC and nowhere else. The government clearly takes a different view. It's loading in World Service, which may be rather a good thing to take it away from direct government, paying for the Welsh Fourth channel and local TV. So I don't want to see funds taken away from the BBC for making BBC journalism and other things, but I think we have to recognise that the licence fee mechanism will be used in different ways in future.
Thank you very much. I think we better just have a hold for this